Hello, welcome to Block 4, Place Value and Ordering Integers and Decimals. Lesson 2. I'll share my screen. So, in your previous lesson, you learned how to recognize the place value of any number in an integer up to 1 billion. In this lesson, you're going to learn to understand and write integers up to 1 billion in words and figures. But before we start, I would like you to pause the video and do the retrieval practice. You can take about 3 minutes to get this done, or even longer, depending on your pace of working. Okay. If you have paused the video and you've worked through the questions, here are the answers. We will discuss them. For the first question, you were asked, what does the 8 represent in the following numbers? The 8 represents 80,000. You can see that the 8, if you were to use your place value chart, you can see that the 8 is in the tens thousand column. Here, this represents 80 million. You can see that the 8 is in the tens millions column. So the 8 represents 80 million. So 8 tens. If you were to do this in the place value chart, you will use 8 counters. Here, the 8 represents 8 million. The 8 is in the million column. So if you were to represent this in the place value chart, you will use 8 counters to represent the 8. For question 2, you were asked, which number represents 40 million? 40 million is this one. Okay. Take note of the way the numbers are split or are put into groups of 3 using commas. So when you hear million, you have 6 digits before the number that actually has the name before the million name. Okay, so for example, if I say 700 million, you would be thinking, okay, I need to have 700 before I have 3 groups and another 3 groups. Okay, so we'll be going to be doing a lot more of this in this lesson. So you're going to be able to write, understand, and write figures and words of numbers up to 1 billion. Let's do some new learning. If you look at this place value chart, what do you think it represents? What number? I'm sure in the previous lesson you've learned how to use place value chart. Here is what we could have. We have 400. Yeah. So that's 400 million. You can see the counters. We have 4 counters in the 100 million column. So we have 400 million. We have 10 million column here. And then we have 6 counters. So it means we have 60 million. Then there we have 1 million. So just looking at the million columns, the 100, the tens, and the million columns, we can call these as 461 million. Then going to the 1,000 columns, we have 200 thousands. You see, this is the 100,000 column. We have 7 counters in the tens thousand column. So I'm sure you're beginning to think, okay, that should be 70,000. And then we have here 5 counters in the 1,000 column. So just looking at the 1,000, we can call these the thousands 275,000. And then looking at the 100 column, we have 8 counters, and in the tens, we have 3 counters, and in the ones or units, the way some people call it. So when we call these groups of 3, we'll call it 834. In figures, when we write this, we'll get this. So 461,275,834. Notice the way the numbers are written in groups of 3. And that's how we read it. Okay, what if we're asked to write 3,082,030 and 20 in figures? So I say that again. Write 3,082,020 in figures. How would you write this? I want you to pause and have a think. How would you use the tool we learned in our previous lesson, which is the place value chart, to write this? Of course, we can use our place value chart and start to put counters to help us know how to write this in figures. So 3 million will go in the million, column. So we can use 3 counters. Notice that we don't have anything there. And notice how we are doing or writing the numbers in groups of 3. Then next we have 82,000. Have you noticed 80 sounds like we have tens? Okay, so we have 8 tens of the 1,000. And then we have 2 of the 1,000. So we don't have hundreds thousand. So I'm beginning to think that you may have figured out what we're going to put there. Okay, we're going to put a placeholder, which is 0. So, but don't worry, we'll come to that. So this is what we'll get. And then we have and 82, right? And 20 in figures. So 20, we're going to have 2 tens. All right. So again, we're going to use placeholders in these places here. So we're going to be using placeholders here. Placeholder where we do not have anything. Okay. So when we write our number in figures, we'll have this. Okay. So we write 3,082,020. Okay. So what we've learned so far is how to use the place value chart to write the numbers in groups of 3. Okay, starting from the left to the right. Write the numbers in groups of 3. Now, if you find out that there is no counters to fill columns in the place value chart, you use 0 as the placeholder. Okay, and you would often hear the word and to represent those spaces where you have 0. Okay. All right. I would like you to pause the video and have a go at questions 1 and 2. You can pause the video and practice with question 1 and 2 for 3 minutes. You can take longer if you wish. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the problems, here are the answers. For question 1, you ask, represent these numbers on a place value chart. Okay, and then you should know how to represent numbers in a place value chart by now. I'm not going to be writing that. And then next you will ask, write each number in figures. So you can see 7,000. Okay, so if we want to write 7,000, we know we're going to have a 7 and we're going to have 3 digits after that. And then we write 561. So you just write 561. Here, 130,000. So we know we're going to have 130, and then we're going to have 3 digits after 130. Then you see that there. So the next number, 800 should come after the 130. Here we have 9,070,000. So we know we're going to have 9. Okay, another way to do this really quickly without a place value chart is we know we're going to have a 9, and then we know we're going to have 6 digits that come after the 9, and then we can start thinking of filling it in. 9,070,000. Now if you think about it, 70 can only go here. Okay, and then you can see the number there. All right, that's how to do it really quickly. So you know these will be filled with 0, and that's what you see there. Okay, next you are asked 9,007,000. Again, we can use the same technique really quickly. We say, okay, we'll have 9,007,000. We know we're going to have 6 digits. Okay, million is followed by 6 digits. So if we have 9 million, the 7 has to go there. So we know all these will be filled with 0. Okay, right. Let's move on. Question 2, you were asked, write number. What number is represented? Write the number in figures and words. Okay, in figures, you can see this is in the hundred thousands, this is in the 10,000s, and then this is in the thousand. Okay, so we have 1, we have 3, and we have 2. And then we go comma 1,000. There is nothing here. We know it's going to be a 0. Then we have 3. Okay, and we have 3. All right. And then in words, that's going to be 132,033. Sorry, I had to move my screen there so that I could see that properly. All right, let's move on. Pause the video for 5 minutes or 4 minutes and practice questions 3 to 5. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through it, you've really worked hard, you've practiced question 3 to 5, here are the answers. We'll discuss them. Question 3, we were asked, what number is represented here? So you can see this is in the 10 millions column, this is in the million column, and then this is in the 100,000 column. So when we start to write this in groups of 3, that's in the 10 millions column, we have 2 of it. So that's going to be 20 something million, right? When you start thinking about how to write it. So it's going to be 28 million. And then you have 300 and, okay, you see, there is nothing there. So it's going to be 0, 320 2,320. Okay. All right. Then you can write that in words. Okay. You can see it there. Question 4, you were asked to write these numbers below in words. Okay. By now, you should know how to read numbers. So you know you have the 9 and you have 3 digits coming after that. So you know you're going to read that as 9,000. Okay. And then with the following numbers, 570. Here you have 89 and you have 3 digits coming after that. So you know, oh, I'm going to read this as 1,000. So you say 89,904. Okay. You can see 904. You can see the 0 is being read as and. Then here you have 8 and you have 6 digits coming after the 8. So you know, okay, I'm going to be reading 8 as million, so 8 million. And then you know, after million, the next thing that comes is thousand. So you know, okay, groups of 3. I have 320, so I'm going to have to read that as thousand. So it's going to be 8,320,050. Okay. And then here you can see we have 9 digits that come after billion. So in groups of 3, we're going to say 1 billion. Okay, there are no other digits that come after that, so we just read it as 1 billion. Okay, question 5. Here you asked, here is a number represented on a place value chart. What is 1 million more than the number? Okay, 1 million more than a number means you need to add 1 million here. Okay, you see, that will now be 6, right? And then everything stays the same. What is 100,000 more than the number? You can see this is the 100,000 column. So if we're going to have a number that is 100,000 more than this, we're going to add 1 here. You can see that's why it's 3. Yeah, you see, that's 2, that's 3. And then what is 30,000 more than the number? So again, we're in the 1,000 column. So 30,000, you see, this is going to be in the tens. 30 is 3 tenths. So it means we're going to need to have 3 more here. So you see, that's why it's 8. You see? And that's different from this one. Okay. Let's look at another example before you do some more practice. 4 students write the number 2,500,000 in words. And here are the things they wrote. Which one of them do you think is correct? Well, I'm sure you said this one. Okay, this is how I called it just now, 2,500,000. But there are other ones that are correct here if you think about it. 500,000 is actually half of 1 million. So I could also read this number as 2 million, 2.5 million. 2.5 million. So that one is correct. Another way to think about it, you hear especially the Americans, they say this, this is a way of them saying numbers sometimes. So for example, if I say the number 2,500, you would hear Americans call this number 2,500. All right. So 2,500 can also be read as 2,500. So using that same idea, we can say, okay, this is the same thing as 2,500,000. Okay. So it's another way of thinking about this number. So when you hear it in everyday use, you will know exactly that, okay, I've seen this before in Mr. Otere's maths lesson. All right. But that one is obviously not correct because a billion, remember, a billion is one followed by 9 digits. So a quarter of a billion is 250 million. Okay. So what you've learned so far is that you can uh, group numbers in groups of 3 digits, and then you know how to read the digits from left to right. Okay. And that helps you to know how to read the digits. And you also learned a different way of reading numbers. So, for example, the number 1000, you can say 1000 is 10 hundredths. Okay. All right. So have a go, pause the video, and practice question 6. You can do it in a minute. Assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the problem, here is the answer. Let's discuss it. Here you asked, Mrs. Baldwin writes a number on the board. And here is the number. The number is 500,000, and this one says the number is 500,000. Okay, they're both correct. Okay, remember what we discussed just now a few minutes ago when we're discussing the example before this exercise. So they're both correct. 500,000 is half of a million, and we can also read this as 500,000. Okay. Pause the video for 4 minutes and answer questions 7 and 8. So it's time for you to practice what you've learned. Okay, assuming you've paused the video and you've worked through the problem, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. For question 7, you asked, Tommy writes 42,510,089 in figures. Interesting. What mistake has Tommy made? You remember? Tommy has made the classic mistake. And what's that mistake? When we write numbers, remember, we write. So if we have 42 million, we know we're going to have 42 with 6 digits in groups of 3 following. So let's start filling them in according to the words we see here. 42,510,000. So we know 1,000 always is followed by 3 digits. So we know we have to fill this place in and 3 digits should come. So 510,000 and 89. Okay. So you can see when you compare it to his, you can see where he made his mistake. All right. Okay, write 42,510,089 in figures. You can see it right here. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Here is the answer to question 8. Let's discuss it. The population of the United States of America is, how would you read that? 329 million and 2,327. Okay, so you can see 329 million, 2,327. Okay, and then the population of United Kingdom is 66.85 million. How would we write this in words? Okay. 66,805. Sorry, just a minute. 850,000. Okay. So if you think about it, if we want to write this, we'll say, okay, we have 66. We're going to have 6 digits following that. Okay. So when you hear point, so 66.85, you're going to have 85 following that. You put 0 there, and then all these are 0. So that's why you have that there. Okay, and the last one, you told the population of Brazil is nearly 250 million. Write these numbers in figures. So if you have 250 million, you're going to have 250 million. And you can see it there, 250 followed by 6 digits. Okay, let's move on. All right, that brings us to the end of our lesson. So what have we learned? So we have learned how to use groups of 3, and also using a place value chart to help us group numbers and to know how to write numbers in figures and in words. Okay, until next time, take care and bye bye.